Can you imagine eating soup every single day for lunch? This was what my friend ate every day for a month. Soup and a little piece of sourdough. Now, most people think a meal that raises your blood pressure has to look salty. But this is what that meal looks like. Doesn't this look pretty healthy? It's pretty light. It has some grains and vegetables. My friend thought so. But a few hours after eating this, her body told her a different story. And by the end of the day, this small lunch was the reason why it kept her blood pressure high. Now, let me tell you how this tiny meal had such a big impact on her body, working against her blood pressure, and how she corrected it within a matter of days. She's not special. Thousands of people also found out that just by making some simple substitutes and adding some specific activities, they can lower their blood pressure within days. And you'll be surprised why this meal was the start of her problem that kept keeping her blood pressure high. Now, there's some cutting edge science that is linking what we're eating today to what's happening in our bodies that you'll be really impressed about. And believe it or not, when it comes to blood pressure, it's not always what you eat that drives the biggest difference in inflammation. My name is Dr. Lou. I'm a double board certified physician for 25 plus years. And boy, have I seen tens of thousands of people with high blood pressure. It is that common. But the thing is, people don't realize it's the inflammation that keeps driving the blood pressure and the complications of all that, which include heart failure and lung failure. And of course, I'm not your physician. So if you have high blood pressure, it's super important that you get together with your own personal physician to fix that. Because the bottom line is high blood pressure causes an intense amount of inflammation in the body. And that inflammation can make your immune system do some gnarly things to your organs. Now, what I've noticed over the years, actually over decades, is that more and more people who have high blood pressure also tend to be overweight or obese. But they've been told that they need to lose weight to drop their blood pressure. Is that really true? You'll find out. Today, we're going to go over the most effective and most impactful actions that you can literally do today to lower your blood pressure naturally. That's been proven by science. This way, you can stop being frustrated about why, despite changing your diet, that you're not seeing any progress or improvement with your blood pressure. So let's start with the very first thing and the most impactful thing that you can do with your diet. And that is to balance your sodium and potassium. That means you have to read your nutrition facts. Yep, those boring labels that tell you exactly what's in your food. Well, it's supposed to, but it really doesn't. However, you can get some general ideas. So on the surface, it's really hard to tell if the food will raise your blood pressure or lower your blood pressure unless you understand why you even have low or high blood pressure in the first place. And that is why this simple meal is so easily mistaken as a healthy meal. I think most people think it's just easiest to lower blood pressure by shrinking your meals. They think, well, if I eat less, my blood pressure should go down. My friend thought so. So why doesn't it work? Well, it's because you're missing the most important concept of your meal. And this meal is probably missing essential nutrients that people don't realize are essential. You have to actually eat it. So the body responds to the chemicals in the meal. And for my friend, this meal did a few things against her body to keep her blood pressure high. And on top of that, it didn't keep her full. It didn't activate satiety hormones. And she got hungry within a couple hours of eating. And then this meal also prevented her from changing her activities. And you'll be surprised at that reason. By the way, if you find values in my videos, could you please check if you're subscribed? When you like, comment, and subscribe, it actually helps my videos reach other people. And if you are subscribed, thank you very much for joining me to change the world. So here's a list of normal blood pressure. And just so that we're all clear, a normal blood pressure is less than 120 in the top number, and it's less than 80 in the bottom number. A high blood pressure is kind of falling, so I'm going to take this here. High blood pressure is between 120 to 129, and less than 80 in the bottom number. Now you have stage 1, hypertension. If your top number is between 130 and 139, and your bottom number is between 80 to 89. You have stage 2 hypertension. If your top number is above or equal to 140, and your bottom number is greater than 90. And if you are considered to have severe hypertension, if you have no symptoms, but you have a blood pressure above 180 over above 120, and the same numbers with symptoms is a hypertensive emergency in which you really need to go to the emergency room. I'm going to leave this list up here. And I know everybody's blood pressure is different. And really, this is why you have to work with your doctor to see what you can tolerate, because you can't go from here to here and feel good. Okay. So that's why sometimes we allow people who have chronically high blood pressure to have a little bit more wiggle room, but it's still not normal. It may be optimal for your body at your time, but it may not be a normal blood pressure. So what do you think happened to my friend? Actually, nothing. Her blood pressure just refused to budge. And in fact, some days it would go even higher. So let me break down why that happened to her because of this meal. So at first she thought she was doing the right thing, right? She would eat a vegetable soup and some toast. And she told herself that this is good. I'm eating light. But she did not feel comfortable after her meals. It wasn't actually satisfying. And in the beginning, she felt okay for a little while. Then she became hungry and she tried to fight it, but ultimately she gave in. And it wasn't the kind of hunger where she wanted like dinner, but it was the kind of hunger where you start looking for snacks around the kitchen, for something crunchy, salty, and quick. Small snacks. So she began just eating handfuls of snacks from her kids' supply. A handful of goldfish, a handful of Cheez-Its here and there. Basically, she was getting more calories and salt from refined, highly caloric carbohydrates like chips and crackers. So why did this lunch fail? No, it wasn't because she didn't have enough food. She was actually full after eating this. But what she didn't have was the right ingredients to keep her feeling full later on, to activate her hormones to tell her brain that she's actually still full a couple of hours later. The soup, when she ate it, gave her warmth and comfort. She was feeling light. But that's the problem with canned soup. This is canned soup. This is what she ate. Savory barley vegetable soup. And these are the nutrition facts. Now, if you drink this can of soup, let's say you would get 1,450 milligrams of sodium. But if you reduce your sodium by 1,000 milligrams, you can reduce your blood pressure by 1 or 2 points the same day. Now, the goal is to eat a total amount of sodium to 1,500 milligrams for the entire day. And if you could have ultimately achieved that, you may drop your blood pressure by 8 points. Now, this one can pretty much meets your entire day's worth of salt. And there's a lot of hidden salt in food, folks. Most people are eating about 3,400 milligrams of salt. Foods are usually built around salt. It doesn't just add flavor. It actually hides the rancid or metallic taste of flavors. So they can sell you older stuff, things that aren't as fresh, because sodium hides that taste. But in your body, salt changes how much fluid your body actually holds. So when your body sees salts, it actually starts drawing in more fluid. Then that draws in more pressure inside your blood vessels. But your blood vessels can only hold so much salt, so anything extra is actually leaked into your organs. It's trapped in your interstitial space. So even when you reduce the salt in your food, all that extra sodium leaked through your blood vessels and was trapped in your body for storage. So that when you reduce your salt intake, that sodium can come out and then go in your blood vessels and keep your blood pressure high. This meal may look small, but it holds a big amount of sodium that will raise your blood pressure, or at least keep it high. And the other factor is she's drinking this soup for lunch. It's not spread out throughout the day. So if you increase the rate at which you increase your salt, you're actually giving your body so much more in a short period of time that it can't keep up with making you thirsty. So you're not going to drink enough water to counteract that salt. And the other most important thing is that your kidneys won't be able to keep up and clear that sodium. That's why the extra sodium gets trapped in your body. But before the sodium is cleared, you're going to be holding on to more fluid. And that extra fluid is going to raise your blood pressure volume and keep your blood pressure elevated. Now, if you don't have high blood pressure, one salty load can still cause you to be thirsty, bloated, puffy, and it can temporarily increase your blood pressure, but it won't keep it sustained at high. But if you already have high blood pressure or kidney disease or heart failure, or you're older, you're salt sensitive, maybe you're on medications, this sudden salt load can push your heart over into heart failure, and that can cause you to go into respiratory failure. So dose and timing matters for your food, from your sugar to your electrolytes. So when you guzzle down sodium, whether it's a soup or electrolyte packet, you're actually making your body work harder than it needs to. You're challenging your kidneys as well as your heart in a big, humongous way. And for that special person, they may be pushed into heart failure and they'll flood their lungs so that they can't breathe. That's called congestive heart failure. You know anybody who has that condition? That's why if you're going to drink canned soup, it's better not to drink it in one sitting. Now, besides sodium, there's 3 other issues. Can you guess what they are? The next issue will actually surprise you. So, what do you think is in the lining of this can? Even if it says BPA free, there's a coat of plastic, right? It has to separate the plastic from the can. Canned soups have notoriously high levels of microplastics, which we know now contributes to inflammation and potentially cardiovascular disease. But actually, that's not even the reason why her meal failed. The soup is too low in other critical nutrients. Remember, I said you have to have a sodium-potassium balance. The potassium here is 820 milligrams, where the sodium is in the thousands of milligrams. So you can reduce your blood pressure by another 3 to 5 points if you can get enough potassium. And this is where this imbalance to the sodium-potassium is getting people in more and more trouble. You're getting roughly your entire day need for sodium in this one can, but you're only getting like 15% of your entire body's need of potassium in this one can. In America, we have a huge problem in eating enough potassium. In fact, 99.9% of people don't eat enough potassium. Now, sure, this is a vegetable soup, but it doesn't have enough vegetables. And actually, the ratio should be 2 times more potassium than sodium. So you're not even close to getting that balance from this canned soup or any canned soup, really. And that's a huge part of why people are struggling with having increased blood pressure and inflammation. Foods high in potassium help you mitigate inflammation and optimize potassium. But even straight potassium salt substitutes have been shown to reduce high blood pressure safely. And it's recommended that each of us eat 3,500 to 5,000 milligrams of potassium a day. Potassium is concentrated in beans and leafy greens, and if that's not your diet, you're not getting enough potassium. There are no leafy greens in this soup. Now, you may be thinking that potassium is totally normal in your last blood draw. However, blood potassium is not a good marker for how much potassium you actually have stored in your body. Your blood potassium is a better marker of how well your kidneys are functioning. So if you have elevated potassium, it's probably because your kidneys aren't working so well. And that's why if you have any kidney issues, you need to talk to your physician before you increase or decrease your diet, change anything, or even think about eating more potassium.
If you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
And that brings us to like a side point. Too many people rely too heavily on blood, because when you have an abnormal number, it could be like a erroneous result. Falsely high potassium can happen, let's say if they leave the blood out too long. Let's say if you had a difficult blood draw, there'd be trauma and some of the cells would lyse. Too many people think that they're healthy because their labs are normal, though, on the other end. They want to check every single marker in their blood to guarantee that they're healthy. It doesn't work like that, folks. There are a lot of things that we just can't check in the serum. We have to take tissue. I've seen plenty of people with absolutely normal blood work, but they have like black feet, gangrene. Your blood markers may not necessarily even show inflammation if your immune cells aren't active. Don't put so much emphasis on your lab tests. They can only tell you so much information. But that's actually not the reason why she was hungry and snacking. Because if she just ate this and she wasn't hungry and snacking, she could probably lose weight. And just by losing weight, she could drop, let's say, with every pound or kilogram she loses, she could probably drop 1 point. So here's another problem with the canned soup. It's really low in fiber. This total fiber is 4 grams, this whole can. Now, why would eating fiber lower your blood pressure? Well, number one, indirectly, she's hungry. Fiber actually can keep you full so that you're not snacking later. And you're right, protein is another good option to help keep you full so that you're not overeating and snacking later. But how much protein do you think is in the soup? This soup has, let's say, 12 grams of protein, this whole can. You're supposed to eat 0.8 milligrams per kilogram of protein if you're not physically active and in a healthy state. If you're a sedentary, you probably don't need that much protein, especially because your blood pressure is high. Both the protein and the blood pressure are adding stress to your kidneys. And remember, your kidneys are managing your electrolytes. And that's why people who have kidney issues, I'm sure the physician is on their blood pressure to get it low and telling them to also eat low protein. 12 protein isn't a low amount. And remember, this bread also has some protein too. But she's really snacking. And remember, she's also eating 2 other meals to get her protein. I don't really think protein's her problem, but it's actually deficient was what I mentioned before, fiber. Now, people don't think fiber is an essential nutrient. So let me ask you this. Do you consider your gut to be an essential organ for your health? Then if it's an essential organ, you better bet fiber is an essential nutrient because it helps to keep your gut healthy. Your gut is full of trillions of friends called your gut microbiome. They're basically bacteria, fungi, parasites, and viruses, and even bacteriophages in your gut. They're all part of a healthy gut microbiome. And when things work out well, they're happy, you're happy. However, if you're not going to feed them, they're not going to stay happy. And your friends have only agreed to help you out if you help them out. So what do you think is going to happen when they're starving? Well, you'll be really surprised to hear this, that when your gut microbiome starves, it's going to eat any carbohydrate in sight. It's going to really dig through that garbage to find food. Just like when people are hungry, they dig through garbage to find food. And they're going to dig through your crap, literally your crap, to find food. And there's going to be no food in it because you didn't eat any carbohydrates. So what is it going to do? Well, it's going to eat the mucus layer that is protecting you from them. And that's going to put a hole in your wall of the gut, in your gut. We call that an ulcer. Does that sound like a happy thing for your body? No. So as a result, you're going to get, in the beginning, leaky gut. And leaky gut poisons your blood with toxins from the crap. You don't want that happening. Then you need to start eating fiber, training your gut to tolerate fiber. It's not just a bottle stuff, okay, folks? It's whole food fiber because there's a ton of different types of fibers and a variety of different fibers, insoluble fibers, soluble fibers that together actually help keep your gut healthy to help you lower your blood pressure. And like I mentioned, this can has 4 grams of fiber. And I really didn't even need to read the nutrition label here. All I needed to read was the ingredient label, right? This has beef broth, water, cooked, modified food starch, and then it has like carrots, tomatoes, barley, green beans. You know, the first few ingredients tells me what this can is made out of. And then it has a bunch of additives and spices and emulsifiers and natural flavors. I mean, is this really something that you want to eat? Remember, you have to have whole plant to give you fiber. It can't just be from a plant. So sugar is from a plant. Does it look like it has any fiber? No, it looks like a chemical because it is a chemical. And that's why it doesn't have fiber. But if you ate a whole apple, it has some sugar. But does it look like it's full of sugar? No, it looks like an apple because what you're seeing is fiber. It's hydrated fiber. And there's so little sugar that it's mostly fiber and water. Now, I'm not advocating for anybody to eat canned soups, but in general, if you're going to go for a soup, go for a low sodium soup. But you know, you can't get away from the microplastics in the soup. But at least you can get a healthier, higher fiber soup. Like this one, this is a split pea soup, and it's right here. Now this can is much smaller than this can, right? This is like 527 grams, and this one here is 425 grams. So it's a little bit less than about 2 cups. But if you compare 1 cup to 1 cup in its nutrition facts, this may have more calories, 30 more calories. However, it has 11 grams of dietary fiber. And it also has 9 grams of protein. This right here has 6 grams of proteins per cup. Because what you're getting is a pea. Peas are really it has a great amount of protein, a great amount of fiber as well. You can see the fiber. Look how thick this is. This is actually much, I would say, healthier version of a canned soup if you wanted to eat canned soup. This one has 11 grams of fiber compared to 2 grams of fiber, right? In one exact cup. But you're going to get more bang for your buck if you make your own soup, like a lentil bean soup. If you make your own, you get lentils, vegetable stock, mushrooms, onion, garlic. You can saute the mushrooms, the onions, and the garlic. And then you can cook the lentils separately for 15 minutes. Then you put the vegetable broth with the lentils, with the sauteed vegetables, and then you can add other vegetables as well. I have the recipe up for you. So let's talk about the sourdough bread. Now, too many people think sourdough is healthier. I guess it's a little bit better than just plain white bread, but it's still white bread. Now, this white bread has some flax seeds, so it's a little bit healthier. It has 2 grams of fiber per slice. And guess what? It has 5 grams of protein because it has the seeds in it. So if you're eating 5 grams of protein here with 12 grams of protein here, you're eating 17 grams of protein. Now, had you eaten this bread with the lentil soup, you would have gotten 21 grams of protein. But the issue is this bread is not your friend. It has 270 milligrams of sodium. So if you eat 1 slice, it's probably okay, but you're adding to 1450 milligrams of sodium. So together, it's like what? 1730 milligrams of sodium. And you can't quite taste the saltiness in that bread, but it's there. And that's the thing with breads. It actually doesn't taste salty, but it actually can have a lot of salt. So if you eat 2 slices of breads, you would have eaten 500 milligrams of sodium, which was a third of the total daily ration of sodium that you should be eating. Now, it's also quite low in potassium, which is not uncommon for white bread. Remember, the potassium in this bread was 90 milligrams and the sodium is 270 milligrams. If you want to actually reduce the sodium, get a bread that has no salt added. Ezekiel actually makes one that's low sodium. So in essence, this bread is mostly refined starch. This means that the fiber has been removed, but at least it has some chia seeds. But when you remove the fiber from the starch, the sugar gets absorbed much faster and it won't hold your hunger as long. It also doesn't feed the gut the same way. It doesn't bring the same mineral packaging as intact whole grains, beans, vegetables. And unfortunately, after eating this meal, it was such an effort for her because she was actually getting bored. It wasn't that tasty. But this, just eating it, was her exercise. So she refused to go and just walk. The thing is, if you can exercise, you can drop your blood pressure by like 8 points. And if you can spend 450 minutes a week exercising, roughly about an hour a day, you can actually extend your life by 4.5 years. Now, let me show you this chart. I made this chart to tell you how many points that you can earn or you can drop, if you actually did the work to change your diet. So if you reduce your sodium, you can drop it from 2 to 8 points, right? The ideal sodium level is to get it below 1,500 milligrams for your entire day. If you can increase your potassium, you can actually decrease your blood pressure by 3 to 5 points. Now, on the same note, if you're eating high potassium-rich whole foods, that's probably going to give you magnesium. And if you can increase your magnesium and not be deficient like half of America, you can also drop it by additional 1 or 2 points. Now, of course, if you lose weight, which I mentioned earlier, that if you can lose 1 kilogram of weight, which is 2.2 pounds, you will drop your blood pressure by 1 point, right? So for every kilogram of weight, you'll drop your blood pressure by 1 point. If you remove the alcohol, that's dropping it by 3 to 4 points. And of course, I mentioned if you exercise, you could potentially drop your blood pressure by 8 points. And of course, you can add all these up. They're additive to help reduce your blood pressure. But I'm sure you know that there are some foods that are super, super good at helping people lower their blood pressure. And if you want to learn more about that, watch the next video.